Good morning, Tony Dattino, doing my live with Tony. And Friday morning, it's June the 3rd. I don't know where the days are going, but they're zipping by. This week has zipped by, and I haven't had a chance on Monday with the holiday and Wednesday doing our Brain Power series up at the Pictona Pickleball Club. I haven't had much of an opportunity to uh, do my live with Tony's. So I want to go backwards. Yesterday, first, let me give you the big highlight. Karen Pinson has been here visiting this week. Karen is my COO of the USA Memory Championship, as well as my daughter. And recently, she has lost her husband, Ed Pinson, who has been such an integral part of the USA Memory Championship that it's been a big loss for us. And it's been a personal loss for Karen after 25 years of being married to someone. So she's been here, and we've been doing some active things relative to the Memory Championship. So I will tell you now, we're approaching more than 50 people that are ready to compete in the July virtual event. From that, we will have 12 people that will go into the finals. So we're excited about that. And the numbers keep growing each day. So that's all a positive thing. And to that degree, today we will be going out to Full Sail University to look at their studio and where they would love to have the final competition this year here in the Orlando area. So Karen and I will be hopping out of here in a little bit, and I think then we're going to be going to the Brain Fitness Academy, and then we go from there to another session that you do with Lumosity and in our memory team with MIT to talk about the status of things and how we're going, what more we need to be doing to make this year's event as great as any event we've ever done. So that's all on the memory side, and in the space of doing all of that, we've been up at the Pictona Club doing our third part of a four-part Brain Power series, and this one was on names and faces. So Wednesday afternoon, evening, we got to go meet a group of people up at that pickleball club and take them through. In fact, Michael Dattino did this. I say great job. I did some of the facilitation. Had a great evening, evening bridge, 4:30 to 6:30, and it was just a lot of fun. I mean, names and faces is one of the fun sessions we have when you're teaching people the skills on how do you remember names and how do you match that to a face and what are our facial features. And what's interesting is people initially, when you ask them to look at a facial feature, what do we mean facial? My nose? I don't know, maybe my mustache, my cleft here, my chin, maybe it's the way my cheeks are and the bones in my cheek, maybe it's my eyes, maybe it's my forehead. Could we look at ears? We look at the overall shape. And so we look at features in people, and I always say, so I walked around the room and I say, okay, let's do feature on each person. Let's look at their feature, and we broke them up into teams of four, and let's cover up the rest of their face to see if that feature is the most prominent. So for example, if I did this to you and you just saw that part of me, would you be able to, oh, I can tell by his mustache maybe, or I can tell by his cheek, or how about if I covered this up? And somebody said, yeah, but your forehead, if you covered all that up, your forehead is distinguished. I can pick you out just by looking at your forehead. So we had a lot of fun with that, and then we talked about, well, how do you break up your name? So for me, I take Tony, Tony, going to New York. When I leave Florida, at times I go to New York where I have a second residence. So, and then my last name, just see, we got these dots on my forehead here. Well, I got this dot on my forehead, so that's a dot. I like to play golf, so I put tees. I put golf tees on my nose and hit the golf ball off there. I put a T on the end of my nose, and my last name is Dattino. Just drop the nose off of that and just get the no. So we had some fun going around the room on how people would remember the names of the people around their particular table. We shared with them the most popular names. So Karen was with us, and she shared with them how she puts the names and faces together for the USA Memory Championship, which they just found fascinating in terms of the work that she does and looking for names and where she goes to get them and how she discovers what they are and making the 135 pictures that we give to people in the USA Memory Championship. And then yesterday, we had Brain Fitness on Monday. We had the Pictona Pickleball Club folks on Wednesday. Yesterday, Karen and I went out to the NASA Space Center. And what really hit me there was they have a session there where they bring an astronaut to the audience, and you can get to talk to the astronaut, listen to his mission and what he does and what it's like in space, and you get to ask questions and stuff. So I found it interesting that he found flying into space was exciting. He actually found it to be fun. He thought of it as being very meaningful, and he thought the whole experience of doing a couple of missions was awesome. But one of the people in the audience posed a very interesting question to him. I hear this from our mental athletes often when they talk about the benefits of being in the USA Memory Championship. And one of the people in the audience said, "Gee, do you ever get scared? Do you ever get scared?" And his answer was enlightening, because I've heard this from a lot of students that have been through the USA Memory Championship. And his answer was, there's no time to be scared, because your focus is on the things that you need to be doing. And there are lots of things you do on a space mission that you have to be able, first of all, knowing how the craft is, the engineering, different components, and what if something goes wrong, and how might you correct or balance, or as things are going right, what are the things you need to be doing, what are the experiments that you should be working on, what are the lessons that you're trying to bring back to Earth, what are some of the tests that we do to see what we can learn when there's no gravity that we can bring. So there were a series of things that he made a comment on and said, but when you have focus, you don't have time to be scared. One of the things I hear from USA Memory mental athletes is they take learning how to do the different memory skills, names and faces, words, lists, keep you focused. You stay focused in those moments where your mind has to be concentrating on these elements of being in a competition and how to maintain focus when you're practicing. So how do you create the focus to retain and pull in information? And it reminds me of when you're having conversations with people, if there's a diversion or somebody else is talking, you lose focus. And so how important is it when we call it the intention of paying attention? So it's an intentional act to pay attention. And that kept the astronaut from saying, I have no time to worry. I can't be somewhere else. Which reminded me of a farmer who planted sod in my lawn at my residence. When I asked him about weed control, he said, I put so much good grass into your lawn that it crowds out the bad grass, so there's no place to put weeds. It doesn't have room. It just crowds out with the good. And my lawn was gorgeous. It was like a lawn-winning lawn. Lawn-winning is such a thing. The point I want to make at is, so the lesson I walked away there is, how do we maintain focus on things that we are important to us? And in the memory practicing, it helps you to learn to control your brain to keep focus on things that are important to you. And you can take that skill, the skill of intention, to pay attention, and you can use that into multiple areas of your life. So that's been my week. I should be back on Monday evening again. I look forward to having a good weekend, and hope all of you do as well. We do have a tropical storm that's coming across the state of Florida, so we have a little bit of rain coming and wind, but we're all going to work to stay safe, and we'll see you next week.